foreign policy and energy policy. Questions. First, today, Israel finds herself in a very precarious situation, very dangerous, again, this time with Iran and Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. In the event of a conflict between those two countries, what would you advocate as our country's position? And number two, while if we increase the exploration for oil in our own country, it would help us to produce more oil, but it would never come close to producing enough to replace everything we import today. So, what is your plan to once and for all create true energy independence for America?
This is the foreign policy question?
Yes, relationships with Israel.
Well, let me start with this. I'm not going to bow and I'm not going to apologize to the United States of America. Okay. Now, let's start with Israel. And, well, first let's start with one of your statistics, which I find interesting. The 70% of the oil we are actually importing, a lot of that is not coming from the Middle East, believe it or not. It's coming from either Canada or Mexico. Now, I don't know if you had geography in school, but Canada's above us, Mexico's below us. What's in the middle? Do the math. Folks, Alberta has 170 trillion barrels of oil. We have approximately 15 to 20% of that. So yes, they have a whole lot more, but not until you include our shale, and not until you include our coal. And we are the Saudi Arabia, by the way, of natural gas, but we can't get it because of an EPA. Says you're not allowed to get it because we might have a spill, and lo and behold, we did. Why? Doesn't it kind of make you want to go, yeah. Of all times to have the amazing ecological disaster in the Gulf. Why now? Just ask. Brings us to the Middle East. Israel doesn't just have to worry about Iran. I wish it was true. Couple things. General Vallely actually endorsed my campaign. He spoke to me the other day, and here's what he says. Iran has the bomb. They just don't know how to put it on a rocket yet. I don't know if some of you have seen the interview he's given. The fact of the matter is, Scud missiles just came from Syria and went to the Hezbollah over in Lebanon, which is, by the way, get your map out, right above Israel. These people are being surrounded. More tunnels are being built from the Palestine side through the Gaza Strip into Israel. They are saying that 2010, this summer, is when things are going to really hit the fan. And it's not just Iran's dirty bomb. In fact, who has to worry about Iran's nuclear is you and me. Why? Because there's a 747 going from Iran into Chavez land in Argentina, Venezuela, every Monday, and nobody knows what's on it. And who's Chavez listening to? Fidel. Fidel has the strings of Chavez, and if Iran has the bomb, Chavez has the bomb, and Fidel has the bomb. Now, back in the day of the Cold War, it was simply Russia, and we have a mono threat, but now we have a plural threat. Look at North Korea and what they're doing to Syria. Where do you think they got the technology and the Scuds from Russia? Folks, they're just the canary in the mine. As Israel goes, so goes us. So what do I say? Let them do whatever they got to do because we're next. We have got to let them defend their sovereignty, and I don't want Debbie Wasserman Schultz going over there and telling them what they have to take just to appease these people. And by the way, it's not about the real estate. It's about who we are. It's who we are as people. That's what they're about. Now, real quick, nuclear. I love DeSoto County and all their solar. We spend 5 times more for electricity there than any other county. We don't need solar, we don't need wind, we need nuclear, we need oil, we need natural gas. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I'll take the energy portion of the question first. It's very unique. My colleague mentioned that we had this spill. Everybody know where the spill happened? How many feet of water? 5,000 feet. Why in 5,000 feet of water? Why not in 50 or 100 or 200 feet? If that spill, I have said, and I've said it publicly, we must exploit our natural, we have, as my colleague also said, we have enough oil, enough gas, enough on the continental United States and in our near-shore territorial waters, we have enough oil to be energy independent for hundreds of years. Now, why do we not exploit it? We say, well, we don't want an oil rig offshore. We don't want an oil rig in our backyard where we can see it. Not in my backyard. That's a great adage that we've chosen, but it's coming back to hurt us today. If that oil rig that collapsed and burned in the Gulf would have been in near-shore waters where it was a couple hundred feet deep, 2 divers would have jumped in the water the next day with their hard hat, they'd have gone down, and they'd have shut that valve. But it's in 5,000 feet of water where no human being can go to work. The robots can barely do anything down there. So I say we exploit our onshore, nearshore resources while we develop better deep technologies, while we develop new technologies. We can't just pop up 30 nuclear power plants in a year. We exploit our resources here. We are the most profitable, most safe nation in the world. We can do it. We can do it. We can be energy independent today with our resources. And yes, we will explore nuclear, explore all of the other technologies, but we can only do them and implement them when they make economic sense. You don't do something and tax the government or do tax credits to make a business do a failed industry. The industries have to make sense economically. What makes sense economically right now? Oil. So let's exploit our oil resources where we can manage them safely and cleanly. Now, as far as the Israel policy, the fate of Judeo-Christian values are inextricably tied. Israel and us are tied together. What happens to Israel happens to us eventually. There is a movement on this planet, and that is the Islamic fundamentalist movement. There's a movement that wants to do harm to us, to Israel, to anyone, just because we breathe. We need to do whatever we need to do to defend our strong allies. We need to nip terrorism in the bud. We need to have a very, very strong defense and defense freedom wherever freedom's trying to take hold in the world.
Thank you. Karen.
First of all, my thoughts and prayers go out to all the people that lost family members on that platform that day. When we decide to drill for oil, we don't necessarily take into consideration all the safety necessary. And as Donna said, they had to go so deep. Maybe that put more of the employees at risk. And that's another reason we need to consider perhaps coming closer to the shore, one, for environmental reasons, and two, for the safety of the workers. We have an abundant amount of oil in this country, and we are one of the only nations that doesn't use its own resources right here in its own backyard. Yes, we want to protect the environment, especially what has happened with this oil spill. I'm in the restaurant business. I know what's going to happen to the price of shrimp and fish. So we're stockpiling because we're nervous. For Louisiana alone, it's a $10 billion industry just for Louisiana. We don't want to jeopardize their industry, so we can come closer to shore, but we have to do it safer, safer for the workers, safer for the environment. So I do support offshore drilling. The other thing is nuclear power plants. We have not opened one since the 1970s. Those are very safe ways. They don't give any emissions whatsoever, very low amounts of radiation. But the reason companies don't open them is because the government has regulated them so tightly and so expensive that no company wants to touch it. And we must continue with our coal, our natural gas. But nuclear power is the next best thing, as well as drilling for oil. As far as our relationship with Israel, it's a tremendous relationship. They are our sole democracy over there in the Middle East. And we should be staunch supporters of them. Not just because Iran is building a nuclear weapon and might attack them and then attack us next. We have developed a relationship with them for the 60-something years they've been in existence, back to Truman. But this administration, I call them out. Shame on them. They are not supporting Israel. Netanyahu comes over here and we basically disrespect him. We don't give the man the honor he deserves. They are a huge ally for us in the Middle East. We need to stand up for them. Without them in the Middle East, we'd probably be at war right now. And it's the fear that Iran will have against them. That is our best hope for peace in the Middle East. We must support them at all costs, financially and personally and militarily. Stand by them. They are extremely important to the sovereignty of our nation, not just the world.
Thank you.